me get everything set up right quick. Let's see, live chat turned on. Video dashboard turned on. Give it a couple seconds to let some people get in here. But I hope everybody's doing all right today. This is going to be the second episode of the podcast. We'll get into it once it actually hits 8 o'clock. It has been a Monday, to say the least. I don't know about y'all, but I am tired. And had it not been for having this live stream planned, I probably wouldn't have been making a video today. But anyway, I did have it planned, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to doing it now. So I guess we'll go ahead and begin just a couple minutes early. And I am Matt with the BAAM Ranch Podcast. This is episode 2, Preparedness, the Essential Insurance Plan. Because that's really what it is, right? It's an insurance plan. We buy house insurance, car insurance, health insurance, all of that stuff. But the simplest and most well-made sense of type of insurance plan you can have is just basic preparedness. And basic preparedness can cover almost all situations. I do want to say, if you're watching, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Let's kind of kick this thing out to some other people. And maybe we can kind of grow this podcast a little bit. I know it's just episode 2, but I'd like to grow it a little bit. I'm going to try to do this live one more time. I noticed the last one, the internet connection wasn't the greatest, and I was cutting out a lot. So we'll try it this time and see how it goes. And if it works out good, if not, we'll do them pre-recorded, or I don't know. We'll try something. If you have something you want me to address, be sure and put the first couple, words or so in all caps so I can see it with my half-blind self. And I guess with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So one thing I want to start doing with every podcast is I want to give a small bit of homework, right? So we all like to, follow this stuff that talks about buying the guns and the super survival kits and all of that. But I think there comes a time whenever we need to start actually putting into use the skills that we may actually need. And the one thing I can guarantee is if something goes bad, or even if it stays absolutely wonderful, eventually you're going to have to eat. So I'm going to put a homework assignment out for today, and that is bake bread. Last night I made some breadsticks, kind of an Olive Garden or Fazoli's knockoff breadsticks, and it's easy to do. So make some kind of bread. I don't care what kind of bread it is. If you've got an idea, leave it in the comments below. But anyway, 3 cups of flour, drizzle some olive oil across it. 2-3 tablespoons. About a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of garlic powder. Whisk that up and set it aside. Then get some yeast, just a packet of yeast. Dump it in about a cup of water. Just warm to the touch water, not scalding hot. Let that with about a teaspoon of sugar. Set that aside and let that yeast go ahead and kick off. Let it ferment a little bit. Whisk up your dry ingredients really good. Get them all nice and combined, and slowly start adding that cup of water in and fold it in until it kind of makes like a shaggy sort of a dough. You may need to add some more water. If you get to mixing it up and it's not really changing, but it just seems a little dry, we'll put a little bit more water in. Just add it in, as you think you need it. Just go small. It goes a long way. So do that. Once it starts to get to that shaggy, sticky consistency, start kneading that dough. Knead it for about 15 minutes or so until eventually it gets kind of a smooth, stretchy, elastic consistency to it. And then toss that thing in a greased bowl. Drizzle some olive oil over the top of it. Rub it all around. And let it sit for about an hour to rise until it doubles. Once it doubles, pull it out, knead it again for about 5 minutes or so, and then divide it up into 10 equal parts. Take those 10 equal parts and kind of roll them up like a snake, lay them out on a baking sheet, cover those up, let them rise again for 15 to 30 minutes, toss them in the, or before you toss them in the oven, melt some butter and whatever kind of Italian seasoning you want. Run that over the top, throw it in the oven, 365 for 10, 15 minutes until they look like they're done. And next thing you know, you got the best bread you've ever eaten in your life. So with that out of the way, so preparedness is the absolutely essential insurance policy. You know, look at what we had going over the past week or so with all these tornadoes and stuff going on. There was a big shooting today in North Carolina, I think. I don't remember exactly what city it was, but there was a pretty big shooting there. Things happen, and things happen that we don't necessarily want to happen. And preparedness is the insurance policy that we carry to isolate ourselves from that, or if it does get bad, to make it less bad, if not good. So we want, you know, it provides us agility in life. If a disaster hits, if you've really got it hammered out where you've got 3 months of food sitting on the shelf, you've got enough cash on hand, you know, 3 months expenses, right? 3 months full expenses of cash on hand, a network of people that you know and trust and could actually do life with. All of these things, even if disaster doesn't strike, let's just say your boss at work starts being a turd head. Well, you can tell him to go screw. It's not going to affect your world any. You've got 3 months of full expenses, and obviously if we don't have an income sitting around, we're going to be cutting back a little bit. So this stuff can help even if the world doesn't absolutely end, right? But it is the insurance policy that we need to go ahead and start building. What we're going to kind of go over today is food and water storage, shelter, safety and security, transportation. You know, I'm going to talk about money. I talk about money every single time. Fuel storage plans, communications, both emergency and what we need to do before things get bad, bug out bags and plans and all of that wonderful stuff, the network of people, and then we have to say something about just not being where the problem actually is. So with that being said, to start off with food and water, let's see. With food and water, we've been over this. We beat this horse to death 1,000 times. But I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't have at least 3 weeks of food as absolutely soon as possible. You are already in an SHTF situation if you don't have 3 weeks of food. That's the immediate, we're in an emergency type goal if we don't have 3 weeks of food right now. So do what you can to get that set back. After that, go ahead and stretch it to a month, 3 months, 6 months, and a year, and so on. Once we get to the year mark of food storage, that gives us time to ramp up our agriculture if things go down. If we need a whole year's worth of food storage, we're in pretty bad shape. 90 days will get almost anybody out of the whatever food problem that they've got. And it also gives you the ability to help others, because it's not just us. Am I gonna, the elderly lady that lives up the road, am I gonna just tell her to screw off? She should have thought about it. No, I'm not. What about that family member that just ignored you for the past 10 years and didn't say anything back? No, you're going to help them out. So you need to go ahead and plan for that. And if you're not the person that's going to help everybody out, either you're kidding yourself or you're not the kind of person that I want to associate with. Let's just be honest. As far as what food do you store and how do you store it? Well, one of the methods that I really like, and this isn't my idea, none of this stuff is my idea, is the 7 meals method. So canned chicken spaghetti. We buy everything that it takes to make canned chicken spaghetti. Whenever it goes on sale, we go to the store, we buy 52 packs of spaghetti. That's a whole year's worth. You don't have to do a whole, year. You can do this by the month, right? So, green chili, Wolf brand chili, and potatoes, put it over some fries. Whenever Wolf brand chili goes on sale, you buy a case of it. And there's a whole, 12 weeks worth of, meals and Tuesdays taken care of. There's 1,000 different meals that you can come up with. They're all relatively simple to come up with. Come up with your own. Have fun with it. Just make sure it's something that your family will actually eat. And it's kind of nice at the end of the world to be like, oh yeah, I mean, we get mac and cheese while everybody else is eating a bunch of damn MREs. After that, we start looking into dried foods, long-term storage stuff. And the big ones here are corn, wheat, rice, and beans. These are your grains. If you follow the Bear Independent channel, I think he is a much better person to speak on this than I am. But what he recommends is 750 pounds per person per year, divided equally among, corn, wheat, rice, and beans. Go check him out if you want to get into the deep diving details of how he came up with that. But it's basically the amount of calories that a military age male needs while doing strenuous activity to not lose muscle mass. Hey, don't hate on MREs. USMC retired, 46 now. Hey, I'm not hating on MREs, but anybody that is eating a whole ton of MREs knows exactly why they don't want to live a whole year on MREs. So yeah, there's that. Water storage, we've been over this 1,000 times too. You want 5 gallons of water per person per day. You're going to need it to cook. You're going to need it to clean. You're going to need it to drink. You're going to need it for so much more than you actually think. So not only have water on hand, have a way to replenish that water. Go get you like the Arizona iced tea that comes in the gallon jugs. Those are some of the most durable jugs that exist on the face of this planet. So it's basically free just to go ahead and fill those things, wash them out real good and fill those things up and have 50 gallons of water sitting around in your house, stuffed underneath the bed, in a closet, whatever. As long as the bottles are clean, you wash the bottles out. If your water is from a municipal source and it's been chlorinated, there's no need to sanitize that stuff later on. You don't have to treat it. It's already treated. We're on a well, so I think it'd probably be all right. But when it comes time, I'm going to run that stuff through a Berkey filter anyway, or boil it, or whatever method you want to use. As far as the filters, if you want to go with Alexa Pure or Berkey or whatever, just pick your poison on that. Just make sure you have plenty of extra filters around for that so you can go ahead and filter that water if needed. We all know that MRE stands for Meals Rejected by Everyone. That, sir, is, yes, I agree with that. I never served, but I've eaten my fair share of MREs. And some of them are awesome, but trying to catch a bowel movement not too long after eating them, yeah, not very fun at all. So I guess that kind of gives the 50,000 foot overview of food and water storage. But once again, I'm going to remind you, it has to be something that your family is going to eat. If you don't eat buckwheat, don't go storing a whole ton of buckwheat, right? And as far as storing those dried goods, you just put them in a 5-gallon bucket. As long as it's a food grade bucket, you don't even need the Mylar bags. The Mylar bags do offer a little bit of security in case the bucket gets a leak. Throw a 2,500 cc O2 absorber in there, seal off that bag, and you're good. Don't worry about the freeze-thaw cycles because that stuff will kill all the little bugs and eggs that start to hatch in that anyway. Let's see. Anything else about food storage? I think that is probably it for the actual food. But I will say MREs. It's a good idea to have some of those MREs sitting around. So I don't mean to totally hate on that because they do serve a purpose and you do need some, as well as like the mountain house, the freeze dried stuff. That stuff's good to have around too. It is exorbitantly expensive though. That's the only issue with that. Of course, the ultimate food storage is food that's on the hoof. Goats, sheep, rabbits, chickens, quail. A lot of people overlook quail. They do everything a chicken does. It just takes a lot more of them to do it, but they don't make any noise. So you can, if you live, in the suburbs, you can keep quail, in your garage, and your nosy, skittle-haired neighbor won't ever even know they're there. So shelter. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on shelter, but when we think of shelter, we generally think of like, the bug out type stuff. And that's important. Pick whatever works for you in your climate that you're willing to carry. Not going to spend much time on that, but let's focus about the shelter that we actually live in, our home, our house. So with shelter, there's more than we need to think of than just the roof over our heads. What is this? How secure is that? How much of an opportunity does it appear to be to someone who might be willing to do something bad? Is it located right in the middle of where the problem is? FYI, you can make bombs with the heating element from an MRE. I've heard that. I never have. I've actually heard that. I never have tried it or seen somebody do it, but I have heard that. By the way, if y'all are here, I got 11 people in the chat and I got 1 thumbs up. Come on, man. Don't be a hoe. Like and share the show. But think about are your locks good? How many people have moved into a house that they just bought and then they lived there 5 years and never changed the locks? Are there places around your house with shrubs and, ornamental vegetation that somebody can hide behind? People say put rose bushes under your windows because, well, that's not going to stop anybody. If anything else, it's just going to give them something to hide behind. Having some sort of security system, good working lights. Lights deter almost all bad things, cockroaches, thieves. Anything that does bad acting at night can almost always be at least deterred with well-lit areas. And then once we have a good, safe, and secure shelter, how do we keep that shelter running? That's what we need to think about next. What's it going to take to heat that shelter if stuff stops working? What's it going to take to, run all your stuff you have in there? We got to keep our phone charged, right? If your phone has less than 30% right now, go plug the damn thing in. Get it charged. Every time you get in the car, you need to charge your phone. And battery packs, those little portable battery station things that you plug your phone into, having several of those around, because like it or not, our phones are the way that we interface with the outside world, and they're actually an essential piece of gear, much more essential than half this other stuff that everybody carries. So how are we going to, power all of that stuff? Our refrigerators, our freezers, how are we going to power that? Do you have, small scale wind and solar? Do you run a generator? Do you just let it spoil and eat it and get botulism and die? Are you out of options and your only option is to fire up the grill and cook all the food you got before it spoils? What, on 4/17 between 1 a.m. and 7 a.m. someone poisoned my dog and he died? You're kidding me, man. I'd be running outside with a shotgun over something like that. I'm sorry to hear that, man. That sucks. So how are you going to keep your shelter up and running and keep it as a livable space? Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. Remember, we're trying to make that as a livable space because we don't want to become a voluntary refugee and have to bug out to go to another shelter when our primary shelter is compromised for some reason. And your shelter extends out, especially if you're a landowner. It extends out, to the surrounding areas around you. Do you have vantage points where you can see 360 degrees around that? Is it all hidden? If you've got a really, really thick tree line that's 20 feet away from your house, how do you know that there's no shenanigans about to happen, 23 foot, from your house because you can't see anything from the trees? Is my name Lance? My name is Matt, by the way. So what can you do to improve that? I went every night, stopped a tweaker once, robbing my neighbor's home due to a heart attack. I also called out fake military guys. I don't know who did it. Man, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that about your dog, man. I would be, wow. That I don't know what to say. That's crazy. But good job on stopping, your neighbor's house from getting robbed. And that's going to kind of tie into what we're going to get into whenever we talk about networking. Your network of people that you can trust. Next, let's look at transportation. Without transportation, we don't have access to capital. We can't go to work. We can't earn money. We can't, go to the grocery store. Transportation is such an essential thing. I know where I'm at, I have a grocery store that's close, but it's still a 10-mile drive away. I still have to drive all the way into town to go to that grocery store. Transportation is essential, especially if you're doing what everybody's goal should be, which is getting out of the cities, moving to the in the country kind of areas. I'm gonna say right quick, I apologize about the vertical video. YouTube wouldn't let me change it on this particular live stream. We'll have it turned back the correct way next time. But for today, it's a vertical video. And with the transportation, we need to think about how are we going to keep that going. So fuel, obviously. So we've got two things that we need fuel for. We've got to have fuel for the house, for a generator. We've got to have fuel for the vehicle. Is it in good repair? Do you have a water pump that's starting to go out? Are your tires in good shape? Wipers, all of that stuff. Now let's step down from our vehicle. And what is our next form of transportation? That next form of transportation for me would probably be one of my four-wheelers, or maybe a bicycle. And that all degrades down to something that's man-portable. So the shoes on my feet are transportation, which means if I'm wearing a nice set of cowboy boots somewhere, I'd better have some decent shoes inside the truck. And see, in California, same dog was stolen by a gang member. I got him back. I'm crushed about my dog. Now I'm in Arizona, comes back, I'm gonna set up a trap. Be careful with doing that, and be careful with who you tell you do that. I used to work at a prison, and one thing I learned working at the prison was every single person that was there because they told someone that they trusted. So that's something to think about. So whatever you do, hey, I'm not standing in your way, but also tell not a single soul about it. So up next, we need to talk about safety and security. So yes, this is where I give you permission to go buy a new rifle or a new pistol or whatever. You were a CO as well? Yeah, I'm glad I'm not in that line of work anyway, man. I do not miss it at all. At the time, it was what I needed. It was something that got me back on my feet, but I'm glad I'm not a CO anymore, to say the least. But I bet you learned a lot about safety and security working as a CO, for sure. But anyway, this is the part where I give you permission to go ahead and go buy a rifle, buy a pistol. And all that's important. You need to get some training done with it. Just because you buy a guitar doesn't mean you're a musician. Just because you buy a microphone doesn't mean you're a podcaster. Obviously, look at this. I've got a phone and I called it a podcast, but I suck at it. It's the same thing as buying a gun without having any training on how to use it. Those of you that were in the military, y'all got more training than most. However, I still suggest that you go get some civilian focused training. And there's 1,000 different places you could go. Be tactical response, Thunder Ranch, a whole bunch of other places that you can go. Cogworks, Haley Strategic. I'm not going to name them all off, but we all do need some civilian focused training for that as well. And while we're talking about that, this also flows into, the security of your home. We already kind of touched on this a little bit, but the security of your vehicle. Whenever you pull up to a parking spot, 3, 5, 15, and 25. Do a quick scan around your car. See if there's some shady looking dude that wants to do shenanigans. Just be ready for that if it's going to happen. Safety also pertains to things. Do I have them out here with me? Let's see. I'm out here in the garage. No, I don't. I don't have them close by. But stuff like leather gloves, there's a chance that we're probably going to have to work, do some manual labor. And tearing up your hands, the primary way that you interface with the world. About a year ago, I did a video where my hand had just had surgery. And to lose function of your hand, which I never got most of the function back out of that finger that I had surgery on, that is the biggest way that we interface. So we got to take care of that. Safety glasses. If you go tromping through the woods at night and you haven't stuck yourself in the eyebrow or in the eyeball with a random twig, then you haven't done it enough. Talk to any guy who actually has done that quite a bit, and they've had that happen to them. Safety glasses, hearing protection. Go get you a set of Peltors or Walkers or whatever, the active hearing protection. Put that on your nightstand beside your pistol or your rifle or whatever it is that you have. If you hear something in the night, reach up and put those on and turn them on. It gives you supersonic hearing. Plus, it doesn't blow out your hearing whenever you have to, discharge a firearm inside a building. Most people have no idea what loud is until they shoot a rifle in a hallway. Even if it's a suppressed rifle, go shoot a rifle inside of a hallway and tell me you're able to immediately communicate with your wife and kids what's going on. Have a set of ear protection, those active hearing electronic earbuds that you can just pop on, go check everything out, realize it was a waste of time, and go back to bed. Masks. Yeah, I know we just went through several years of, being forced to wear some stupid mask to go buy food, but, they do serve a purpose. I've been stuck in a dust storm, and having a mask and a set of swimming goggles that my kids happened to leave in the car were really, really handy that time. You can sit here and try to breathe through your shirt or whatever, but just having some sort of a mask makes that outstandingly easier. Hey, I appreciate the kind words about the information here. Money. Y'all don't like it whenever I talk about money, but I see I'm having hearing problems due to the 50 cal in military service. I bet you are, man. I bet that's no freaking joke. I've got hearing issues. I was never in the military, but I spent way too much time shooting guns and listening to loud music and other hearing damaging things. We won't talk about the first 10 years of my adult life that was spent inside, bars and nightclubs, but I'm sure that didn't help any either. But money allows all of these things that we've just discussed. It allows all of those to happen. You're not going to have any of this stuff that we've just discussed without money. And don't come at me with how money won't matter when the world ends. Well, the world hadn't ended yet. And we still need to move forward and make steps in progress before that starts. And having money is what lets us do that. Having 3 months of income setback is what is able to let you tell your boss to go screw whenever he's being an asshole. Money is just as important as every single thing that we've discussed up to this point. Yes, like ammo, absolutely, there's never enough. Dude's forehead is crazy. Well, you are absolutely an observant little child, aren't you? But anyway, so you need to have some money. And whenever I talk about have some money, I'm not talking about you need to go out and work a little bit of overtime. You're not doing it wrong if you do it that way. But if a house is on fire, a fire truck shows up and they're having trouble getting it out, what do? Do they turn up the pump? No, they bring other fire trucks and they put extra streams of water into the fire. We want to do the same thing with our income. We want to have multiple streams of cash coming in. So that can be a side hustle. Overtime works if that's all you got and it's the low-hanging fruit. Do it. If it's there, take it. Don't turn it down. I don't hate money. You don't hate money. We'll take it. But side hustle, starting a business, a side business, any number of ways you can do this, a second job, but getting those extra streams of income that are completely unrelated to each other. If something happens with stream 1, it does not affect stream 2 and 3. As a matter of fact, it gives stream 2 and 3 the chance to double the amount of income that they're producing for us. The amount of cash flow will go, they just increase because now we have more time to work on them. 3 months of income, it's hard to do. I know everything sucks right now, but the good news about that is if you're broke, and I've had to say this to myself many times, the biggest common denominator in all of your problems is actually you. It's the easiest thing you can fix. So get out and hustle. Let alone the fact that money just allows you to be able to take advantage of things that other people won't. You want to get out of, the built up city that you're in? Well, I'll tell you, it's not your job that's stopping you. There's nothing it's money. You're not going to throw $500,000 on this huge property that is your dream acreage, right? Without any money. You've got to have money. It is a pretty realistic situation that you might not be able to go to work for a month. What if you break your leg? You're going to be out of work. Oh, well, I've got short-term disability. Okay, well, that pays what, 60%? You've got to have some money. What if you get fired tomorrow? Unemployment or whatever. Okay, cool. But can you think of a situation, whether it be something, personal like that, or even like a total disaster, or having a whole freaking stack of piles of cash? This closet, if it was stacked all the way to the ceiling where I couldn't fit another single tiniest piece of cash in there, is there any situation where that would not make it a little bit better? No. So get you some money and start stacking it back. It's hard to do. It's tough. I get it. I'm in the same boat. I'm right there with you. But we've got to start stacking money. We've talked a few times about fuel, and I'm going to focus on combustible fuels for the purpose of this. You need to have some gasoline on hand. If you live in an apartment, I know there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But for everybody else, if you're in an apartment, you're just going to have to kind of figure out what you can do. Rent a storage facility if you need to, or move out of the apartment into an actual house. easier said than done, I realize, but you're just limited on what you can do. So what I do is I have 12 fuel cans. They're NATO surplus jerry cans. They're labeled 1 through 12. And in January, I take the number 1 can, I dump it in the truck. And whenever I go get fuel, I refill it. I do that every month. That gives me 60 gallons of fuel, which is enough to get me a pretty dang good while. That'll run the generator a long time. We've got several of them, and we only run as much generator as we absolutely need at that moment. If we're not doing nothing, well, I'm gonna be running that super tiny little 1,000 watt Honda generator. And it starts to, when it gets time for everybody to make coffee and use the microwave, well, then we'll turn on the one that's a little bit bigger. Buy gold and silver if cash burns holes in your pocket. Yeah, that's sound advice. At least you feel like you got to get something there. But I would even say more so than that. Hard assets, yes, I agree with that. But what if you were to buy like storage building or a place to set up a shop? To me, that right there makes a whole lot more sense than gold and silver. If I had a whole bunch of money burning a hole in my pocket right now, what I would buy is I'd probably buy a tractor. I really, really miss my tractor that I had at the ranch. We don't have that at this new place. And not only does that allow me to get work done, but it allows me to monetize that tractor and go out and, actually earn money from that. That right there is going to bring you a way bigger return than gold and silver. And you want to tell me during a disaster, you're not the guy who can get anything he wants when you've got a tractor with a grapple or a set of pallet forks? Something to think about there. So yeah, gold and silver is cool, but what can you spend that money on that is an asset that actually produces something for you? Chickens and a chicken coop. That's an asset that to me is worth far more than gold. Buying some really nice pre-built raised bed gardens, because your time is worth something, even if you're not being paid for it. So that's kind of what I think of when buying hard assets, more so than gold and silver. It has its place, and I think everybody ought to own some. But what hard assets can you buy that are actually going to produce more for you than the gold and silver? Back to fuel storage. I keep getting sidetracked here. We are past gold and silver. We need lead and brass. Much agreed. So 60 gallons of fuel. And if you've got more than 2 vehicles, you're going to need more than that. If you have a diesel vehicle, you're going to need something for that. If you've got a tractor that you plan on running when the world ends and helping clean up after the tornado, you're probably going to need a little bit more diesel. Gold and silver are for fair trade. True. So communication, and I'm talking about far more than just radios. Part of your communications plan, emergency plan, is talking to everybody that you know and letting them know, hey, whenever stuff goes down the tube, when things are circling the drain and it looks bad, this is what we're going to do. That's part of your emergency communication plan. Whenever the drain stops circling and finally clogs and floods out and screws everything up, have you communicated with everybody that you're close to so that y'all can figure out ahead of time what you're going to do? I've got a video on my channel where we had to bug out. We did an amazing job under our roof of knowing what we were going to do if such and such scenario happened. Well, such and such scenario did happen. Like 1.5 million acres of land burned. We had to bug out. We had communicated in the past with my wife's parents on what we would do, but we mentioned it. We didn't sit down and have a dialogue and this is exactly what we're going to do and make a hard, fast plan. We didn't communicate that effectively enough, and it caused a little bit of confusion. We got it worked out. Everything was fine. Obviously, my house is still here. We didn't lose our house. A lot of people did. I pray for them. But communicating with everybody around you to let them know what it is that you're going to actually do whenever something goes bad. Then we talk about the radios and all the stuff like that. Number one communication is, if you can see it in the reflection of my glasses, is this Babylonian rectangle of death called an iPhone that I'm talking to in my garage right now, regardless of how weird my wife thinks that is. That's our primary communication device. But what if it doesn't work whenever the disaster hits? Okay, cool. What if it does? With that being said, if the phone lines are clogged and you can't get through, send a text. It'll stay in queue until enough bandwidth opens up for it to go ahead and send that on out to somebody. Everything you need to build a bug out kit can be found at local Walmart. That's funny. I'm assuming somebody hijacked the Walmart avatar. That's funny. Yeah, I like that. Good job. If that is actual Walmart, that'd be pretty cool, but I doubt Walmart's going to be looking at my channel. That's awesome, man. I like that. Whoever you are, good on you. But so cell phones, that's our primary form of communication. After that, we're looking at things like, Messenger through Facebook or Instagram or, other things like that. And then we kind of continue on down the stuff that we communicate with normally, email and, the easy stuff, the don't overthink it stuff. And then if it gets really, really bad, then, we're looking at like a Baofeng radio or just the bubble pack of the little FRS radios that you get at Academy Sports or Walmart, for that matter. And have a let everybody know what frequency or channel you're going to be on. Not everybody's a radio nerd. I am. I'm a licensed ham radio operator. Not everybody is going to be a radio nerd. So you need to give clear set instructions on whenever this happens, turn it to channel 12 or turn it to whatever frequency. Write it down for them so they can look it up, because they're not radio nerds and they won't remember. And go over that person. Go over, radio etiquette. Okay, just because we're talking back and forth to each other, well, you got to remember, everybody in the world can hear us. There is no such thing as secure radio. The most secure form of radio communication, the encryption that our U.S. military uses, we can still hear it. And given enough time, you and I can decrypt that. Maybe not decrypt it, but we can get enough useful information out of it that we don't, the encryption has been rendered obsolete anyway, if that makes sense. So have that conversation with them as well. Okay, now let's talk about bug out bags and bug out plans. First of all, if you haven't figured out a bug out plan, don't worry about your bug out bag yet. Where are you going to go? Now that you have made the choice to become a voluntary refugee, where are you going to seek refuge? Say all you want about how I'm not leaving my house. Well, I tell you what, when there's a 1.5 million acre fire headed toward the place your family lives, trust me, from experience, you bolt, you get out, you don't stay. Whenever there's mortar rounds coming down 2 miles from your house and you see that they're walking their way towards you, I'm out. I ain't staying and fighting that. If there's just a whole bunch of hooligans, shooting up the neighborhood, I don't do my family any good if I get shot. If I don't get killed, if I just get injured, if my capabilities dwindle by 10%, I'm 10% less effective for my family in feeding them and keeping them safe and secure. So if I think a fight is coming, I'm out. I'm not sticking around. I'm bugging out. So there are reasons why you might need to bug out. As I mentioned in that video that I talked about on the whole bug out thing, whenever we had to bug out, our primary bug out location was also a non-permissive environment due to the same fire. This was a 1.5 million acres worth of fire. And the alternate, our primary location was 60 miles away. So we had to go to an alternate from that. No big deal. We made that decision, bam, that fast, under 10 seconds. We already knew where we were going because we had communicated that plan with each other. How are you going to get there? Because you're probably not going to just go stomping through the woods with your bug out bag. Come on. I mean, you're more likely to catch an Uber to where you're going. Most likely bug out scenario is you're going to go stay in a hotel room for a couple days. And before you come at me with, well, if you evacuate from a hurricane, all the hotels are gone. Well, no, they're not. They are if you waited too long. But if you've got money sitting around, you can call up a hotel and reserve a room with a credit card, no problem. People do it all the time. That's actually how they sell the hotel rooms, So, and you could very easily bug out by taking an Uber to that hotel room if you had to. But more than likely, we're going to drive our normal everyday driver vehicles. Sometimes I may take everything. I'm loading every trailer. I'm loading up the racks on the four-wheelers. We're taking the whole thing. But you know what? You don't always have time for that. That's the full on, we've got 2 days worth of notice. Sometimes it's just what you can grab right quick and throw it in the truck and get out. Go watch that video that I did, and I'll get into that and why that is. And why that's kind of what we did. We had a few things that we had to gather and we bolted. A couple of Rubbermaid totes, throw it in the bed of the truck, load my truck and my wife's car as best we could. We got everything that we needed. We kind of looking, after the fact, wished that we had made some family pictures and stuff, that some copies of that so that we could have taken that with us. Given more time we could have, but we would have run the risk, in such short notice of breaking the frames and just destroying stuff worse. I will say with your bug out stuff, you need to go and pick out a couple heirlooms for each person in the family or something you really care about. And for me, one thing that comes to mind is there's some pictures of my kids whenever they were babies and whenever my wife and I got married. Marriage licenses, all of the documentation, you need to have that stored in one spot anyway. You might as well grab it if you're going to bug out and have a digital copy of all that stuff saved. There's a few heirlooms, granddad's pocket knife, the doily that grandma made. I don't know, but you've got something that if you don't have a home to come back to, that you would really appreciate having with you and being able to keep at a later time. So go through that stuff with your bug out stuff. Now on to the bug out bag. Too many people get wrapped around the axle of this being a freaking survival kit. And while it does contain stuff to survive, more realistically, what a bug out bag is, it's a 3-day overnight bag. I've used a bug out bag several times, and it's been for stuff like, going and staying with a family member who's at the hospital. So the mindset I want you to have with this is, like, you've got to go take about a 3-day trip to grandma's house, and grandma doesn't have a whole lot of money. So you need to bring your food with you, and there's not enough beds for everybody, so how are you going to sleep? A lot of people put a ton of energy into, the survival stuff and almost zero thought into how they're going to sleep. Because I promise you, on the worst day of your life, you're going to be glad that 60% of the weight in your bug out bag was devoted to helping you get wonderful sleep. How about a network of people? You're not going to do anything by yourself, all by your lonesome. You're going to have some people around you. I would like to build a network of people here that, we don't interact on a personal level, but there are people on this YouTube channel that if I don't see them comment in a video, I get legitimately worried about them. That's not a true interpersonal network, but it's built the same way, right? And there's people that subscribe to this YouTube channel that I've gotten a bind with our water well back at the ranch. He sent me his email. So he's an electrician. He emailed me his phone number, said, let's get on video chat and go figure this thing out. So building that network of people is good even before the disaster strikes. And this isn't just a value for value exchange. These need to be people that you wouldn't mind doing life with. Having neighbors that can watch out for you. Being able to watch out for your neighbors. You want to know how to build a good relationship with your neighbors, especially if you live outside of town? Find someone that has chickens. Walk over there. I don't care if you have your own chickens or not. Walk over there with an empty egg carton and $10. Say, hey, I want to buy some eggs. Most likely they're going to give them to you for free, but you've just established a really good relationship with that neighbor. Same thing can work, if you live in the city or in the suburbs. Offer the value first. Something of value. Make it that step to make good interactions with people. And you'd be surprised how useful the information is that can come from the seemingly, surprising sources from the people that you build your network around. You may not think that someone who does graphic design might offer something useful to you. And in a survival scenario, are they going to go and design the Hulk fist? Not necessarily. But whenever you decide to go ahead and kick off a side business and you need some business cards made, there you go, right? I tend to make a lot of friends because I can fix broken things. I'm pretty good at fixing broken stuff. Which, by the way, I got contacted by somebody that wants to sponsor some fixing broken stuff. Not really sponsor, but send me some product. We don't know if that's going to happen yet. We haven't worked out the details. It may not happen. But we're kind of in communication with that. And it's getting nice outside. So it's time to start fixing everybody's broken stuff for them. 1,000 different ways that you can go ahead and make good network connections with other people. But just remember, you have to provide value also. All right, the last thing I have on my list is don't be where the problem is. Don't go stupid places and do stupid shit with stupid people. Simple as that. If there's a problem there, don't go there. Probably wouldn't be attending any January 6th protests after this point because chances of them using that against you are pretty high. I'm probably not going to be attending any of that stuff. I don't go to protests because I don't want to put myself in a stupid place with stupid people and let people assume I was doing stupid shit. And you need to be the same. We can take this up a level, on up to the ultimate goal of don't be where the problem is. I'm not going to live in LA. There's a reason why my wife and I sacrificed what we did to be able to move out here, 6-8 miles from town. Because we didn't want to be where the problem is. Even though the city we live close to doesn't really have too many problems. You never been protesting? I have. But those days are behind me. I've got better, more important things to worry about than going and protesting somewhere. What am I going to accomplish? At some point, it turns where you wind up looking like PETA covered in paint while standing there in the nude. So, I don't know. I'm not opposed to going to all protests, but If I don't think it's going to accomplish something, I'm not going to mess with it. What happened to you? You look like you survived a fire. Well, maybe I did. Who knows? Peaceful protest. Well, like I said, I'm not totally opposed to protests, but if it looks like it's a stupid place with stupid people, then I stay away because I don't want to get accused of doing stupid shit. This moves on up, like I said, to the house. And if you're wanting to get out of where you're at, you're not stuck. There's nothing stuck about where you're at. Your job's not holding you back. Nothing is holding you back but you. Get out and hustle, and it sucks, but I know you can do it because I did it, and I screw up everything I touch. Everything I touch, I screw up. And my wife and I managed to do it. So you got to get up 15 minutes early. That's what fixes your problem with driving to work. You've got an extra few dollars in gas to get to work. So your job isn't stopping you from getting out of the built up areas. And I'm not saying you have to move out in the middle of nowhere because, quite frankly, I don't want to do that. I want to live close enough to a place to support shopping malls. You work from home or 9 to 6. I do not work from home. I have a normal, 5:45 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. job. And then we've got a couple hustles that we do after I get home. I would actually really like to grow this YouTube channel and podcast to a point where it starts making more than 25 cents per video. Part of that might be what I'm doing right now. Trying to offer some of my free advice. If I can share enough value with y'all, can I get people to come in and return value to me in the form of watching an ad or something like that? So that's something that we're working on. We haven't jumped all the way into doing the whole YouTube and stuff yet. I don't know how this podcast thing is going to work out. We'll have to test it out and see. But you are capable of moving and getting out. I know housing is stupid right now. We bought housing, 30-30 or 44. I go with 44. 44 every day because I can run it in a carbine, a little saddle gun, or I can stick it in a revolver. So I'm going to go with 44. 9mm, yeah, that's actually what I do carry is a 9mm. I don't carry I've got other guns. I've got bigger guns or whatever. I carry a Glock 19. On occasion, I'll carry a Glock 17. So what about you? 30-30 or 44? I also like the fact that you can shoot the 44 specials. I have me some fun with some 44 specials, man. I bought an old Rossi. It was right after I turned 21. I bought a Rossi that was 44 special, and that thing was fun. It didn't take me long after that till I went ahead and got a Smith 44 Magnum. I love it. Don't discount the 357. I love the 357 too. I've got a the Model 28? I get confused with Smith & Wesson model numbers. 4570. 4570 is awesome. But I live in the Texas Panhandle, and we don't have brush or trees or anything like that here. We've got, it's nothing to get a clear 400-yard shot at a deer. So, I don't know. Let's see, do you have a MCK for Glock? I have a Glock 19, a 23, a rifle 7.62x54. What is MCK? I guess I'm not sure what you mean there. I carry a Glock 19, a Glock 17. I used to carry have a whole bunch of different guns and all, 40 and 357 SIG. I got tired of buying all that ammo. I just settled on 9mm. and I sold everything to get that, slimmed it down. I've got a few, stuff in other calibers, but mainly it's one-offs. And like I said, 44 um, heirloom guns. I probably wouldn't have the 357 anymore if it wasn't because it belonged to my granddad. You see the new gun Henry made last year. Okay, here's the deal. I like guns, but I don't necessarily keep up with all the shot shell stuff. I'm assuming you're talking about, let's see, check out MCK, nice adapter, lightweight, highly recommended. What's your thoughts on concealed carrying with a round in the chamber? If you're not going to carry a round in the chamber, leave the damn gun at home. If you don't trust yourself to carry with a round in the chamber, go get training. With any modern striker-fired pistol, carry it with a round in the chamber. If it's not in the chamber, just leave it at home. For the people that are afraid of that, they need to learn how firearms operate. I'll look into that, an adapter. Oh, is that one of the MCK adapters? Is that one of the ones that turns it into like a long gun? Sort of like a stock? If that's the case, I think I know what you're talking about. I carry a SIG. My carry is a SIG 1911. I used to be a really big 1911 guy. So I know Kimber isn't quite near the quality that they used to be. That's what it is. They're like, yeah. I've always wanted one of those things, one of those MCK adapters. I never have bought one. Got other things that want my money. But I used to carry a 1911. You remember back whenever Kimber was actually a pretty good company, and they had their normal guns, and then they had the pistols that came out of the actual custom shop. I loved my Kimber custom shop CDP. Man, I carried that thing for years. I moved on to the Glock 19. I want more rounds. Carry 3 magazines to go in a 1911, and then carry 3 magazines to go in a Glock 19. I don't think that there's any perceivable difference once you get to 9mm and up with pistol rounds in how bad it's gonna, I think they're all equal after that as far as the knockdown power. So that's why I go with the Glock 19. I want more bullets. That's simple as that. That and parts availability and all of that stuff. And you really have to buy a good 1911 and be able to, even if you do buy a good 1911, you've got to have some 1911 knowledge to keep one running well. Whereas with a Glock, they work just fine. Let's see. I have drum mags for each Glock. I used to have some drum mags for Glock. I always had trouble getting them to work. I never could find one that was reliable. I do have some of the 33 round factory Glock mags though. I like those. Those are fun. But I can't ever seem to get the let's see, how much battery does my phone have? I can't ever seem to get the drum mags to run. Smith & Wesson CSX. Like I said, I'm a gun guy, but I'm not like a big gun guy. The guns that I have, and any comments on it? The guns that I have they're tools. They're screwdrivers, they're hammers, they're tools. So no, I'm not familiar with the Smith & Wesson CSX. What is it? I've kind of got what I like for the most part, what works for me, and I kind of stick with it. There's other things that I can put my money toward. I'd like to have a PTR 41. Do you mean a PTR 91? I used to have one. Whenever they very first opened up, they were called JLD Enterprises. What was that? Probably, I don't know, 2006, 2007. And they bought all of the HK tooling from HK whenever they decided they weren't going to make the HK. So what is the PTR 41 then? But they bought all of that and they called it, the model was the PTR. And then they changed the company from JLD Enterprises to PTR. I think the only difference was they had 6 flutes in the chamber instead of 5 flutes in the chamber on the 308s. And that's what I had. I had a PTR 91. So what is the PTR 41, Evan? MCK is like 150 to 250 with upgrades. I don't know. It'd be fun to have one. I don't see myself spending that money on that. There's other things that I can put my 250 bucks in. Although I would absolutely love to play with one, and if I saw one and got to handling it, I might go ahead and buy it. I'm not going to say I wouldn't. The CXS is a micro modern 1911, basically. My bad, PTR S41. What is the PTR S41? Got mine for like 500 bucks, right on. Russian anti-tank rifle. Oh, let me scroll back up through the comments right quick. Yeah, I would like to have a Russian anti-tank rifle. That is much more than the PTR 91 or, HK 93 or 91. Yeah, so much more than just a 7.62 rifle. They fold up and fit in a small backpack. Let's see, I'm losing track of the comments. Which one is it that folds up and fits in a small backpack? Yes, wife?
I gotta go get Autumn.
I gotta go get my daughter from work. My wife just came and told me about that. I'm gonna have to cut this live stream short. Y'all come on back next Monday. We're gonna do it. What do you think about Jews? I have no problem with Jews. And anybody that does have a problem with somebody based on religious or racial or anything like that, they can promptly go fall off of a cliff. I have no problem with any massive overarching group of people. You guys crazy. Tank rifle must be identified. Weak points. Do you think if a war against civilians versus the government? Dude, we're already there. The next war is going to be, if you follow S2 Underground, you'll see about the 5th generation warfare, which is the war of information. And that's how that's going to be won. We won't know who the enemy is. But anyway, guys, I got to jump out of here. My wife just opened the door out here. Okay, whoever BLM is getting banned because I think that they're doing nothing other than trying to make racial stuff. And racism will not be tolerated around here. So that guy can promptly screw off. Give me just a second. Put user, knocked it over. Who controls the media? Okay, guys, like I said, I got to jump off of here, man. I got to go get my daughter from work. We'll come back next Monday at 8 o'clock and do this again. I really wish I could continue the conversation with you guys. But for now, this live stream's out. Do I like hunting? Yes, I love hunting. I just wish I had more time to do it. Anyway, guys, y'all continue the conversation. Come back and watch the replay. If you go to the YouTube channel and click live, it'll show up right there instead of under the videos. It'll be like tomorrow or something before it's there. Well, anyway, you guys have a wonderful evening and stay safe. Yeah, like button. Don't be a hoe. Like and share the show. Come on, get that up to 5 right quick before I go get my daughter. Oh, come on. Like the video. All right, I got to go, guys. Y'all have fun.